schools through their entrepreneurship, commitment to community service, deep value of justice and liberty, and social and cultural life, and
whereas Hispanic, Latino, Latina, Latinx, Latine, and Chicano, Chicana, Chicanx, Chicane people have made and continue to make important contributions to education, science, art, culture, and public service, and our nation's growth and prosperity. And whereas education is a necessary component for creating a more equitable and anti-racist community, nation, and world. And whereas the Corvallis School District has made a commitment to equity and anti-racism. And
whereas the Corvallis School District has a responsibility to honor and respect the diverse histories of our community, and whereas the Corvallis School District believes each and every student must be celebrated and appreciated for the district and vibrant contributions made by sharing cultures, language, ideas, beliefs, and values within a school community. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Directors of Corvallis School District 509J, Benton and Lynn Counties, Oregon, as follows.
Encourage all schools in the Corvallis School District to help highlight this month in great appropriate ways, as well as highlight the contributions of Hispanic, Latino, Latina, Latinx, Latine, and Chicano, Chicana, Chicanx, and Chicane peoples to the local community, nation, and beyond, both historically and in current times. Adopted by the Board of Directors of School District number 509J Corvallis of Benton and Lynn Counties, Oregon, at its regular meeting this 9th day of September 2021.
Oh, there it goes. Thanks, everyone. And as a reminder to the community and everybody that we reread these resolutions every year as a way to reaffirm our commitment as a district to everything that is contained within them, although it is dated from previous years. So that's a little bit of explanation on that. And as somebody that is part of the community being highlighted, I wanted to wish all the other fellow folk a happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Whether or not we carry that title ourselves is another thing. And welcome Sarah and Therese. Just to update you all, we removed the school construction exercise tax rules from the agenda because staff are not available to answer questions this evening. And our next item is board member reports. Do we have any reports? I have a report. We have a report.
we have a report.
Yeah, me and Therese. Yeah. Therese and I attended the Corvallis Public School Foundation meeting last week, and I was able to attend part of it, and if you wanted to report on it as well, Therese, you're more than welcome to. But that was a great meeting. It was good to meet everybody and be in that space. I am not able to attend those meetings this fall due to my teaching schedule for my work that I have at OSU, and Therese will be reporting and attending on behalf of the board from here on. So, do you have anything to add?
I'll just share quickly that it was an exciting meeting to hear them getting started up for the year. We went over committees and shared a little bit about some of the goals they have around an upcoming fundraiser, as well as just kind of getting reoriented with some new members and members in new roles. And so I'm excited to get to connect with them and grateful for the contribution that they make to the public schools in our community.
Thanks. And since this won't, people may not see this for our board member comments way later in the meeting, I just want to say welcome back to everybody, to all the students and to all the staff and everybody. It's exciting seeing everybody out and about. I know it's been fun dropping off my kids. They even went to school early. I was like very surprised and happy about that. So hopefully everybody else is off to a good school year as well. And yeah, welcome back everyone. And next we have our Oregon School Boards Association, National School Boards Association updates. And Sammy that was included in the packet. So thank you for preparing that, Sammy. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I noticed in the report you sent that the National School Boards Association was accepting proposals for sessions during their equity part of their meeting this year. I was wondering if we had considered submitting a proposal about our bond process.
Absolutely. I think that would be phenomenal to do, and I believe we did present previously about the bond while we were in the middle of it, and maybe I'll defer to Ryan and staff if maybe a collaboration between the board and you on a presentation proposal would be something you'll be open to. I think that would be great, a very competitive proposal.
I would be happy to go to New Orleans. So.
It sounds like we have our presenting team. No, yeah, I think that would be great. We've had a number of opportunities and COVID sort of got in the midst of all of that, but opportunities to talk about our bond and the work we did in around the ways that we included community in the process. So I think that would be worthwhile. So thanks for thinking about that as a potential presentation topic for NSBA.
And we're talking about NSBA, right? Yeah. Yeah, that'd be really fun. Yeah, any other questions? Just want to acknowledge Chris's contribution to the report. Ryan and Chris attended the summer conference for Oregon School Board Association, and Chris contributed to the report by reporting about her participation there.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Sammy. Okay, next on the agenda is the superintendent's report, and you have a presentation?
I have a few slides
Okay.
and just some updates. So first, I'm going to introduce two of our new principals. So if our two new principals wouldn't mind standing up. I'm going to start with Stephanie Seals to the right. Stephanie is the new principal at Sheldon Middle School. Before coming to Sheldon, Stephanie worked at North Albany Middle School, and prior to that, she worked in both Salem-Keizer School District and in Wichita. And in those roles, she's been a principal, she's been a learning coach, and a middle school teacher, and we're just really excited to have her as a member of the team at Sheldon and as a member of the team in the district. So thank you so much for being here tonight. And then also Kathy Wright. Kathy is also new to us. She will soon be starting up at Crescent Valley as interim assistant principal there. She's completing a little bit more time with the ESD, where she serves as the long care and treatment director for the ESD, primarily serving at the Children's Farm Home. But Kathy is not a new face to us. She worked here in the district prior. She worked at let me try that one more time. Corvallis High School in CSD, and also at College Hill. And in those roles, she's done a great job as a school counselor, as a person who helps students reach and achieve not just graduation, but where they were going to head next, and has been a great supporter of Corvallis School Districts, and we're so happy to have her back with us. And then I just have a couple of other highlights. I went big because of my eyesight, and now I'm trying to figure out which page I'm on. Pro tip. Yeah, there we go.
I can see it from here, so that's good.
Yeah, exactly, if you want to go ahead.
No, you went.
So a couple of other things to highlight are Welcome Back Rally. So those of you that were able to join us, that was fantastic. A great way to start the year. And in terms of a theme, we really focused on folks who had been in our system coming back to talk about what they're up to now, and also to highlight and recognize some of the staff that are in our school district that made a difference and had an impact on them. So again, it was a really, in my mind, it was about the impact that educators have over the long haul. Sometimes we don't run into students for years, and then we run into them at some unique place, and they tell you about the connection that they still have with you. And so we wanted to create that space and the opportunity to do that for all of our staff in the Welcome Back. So again, thanks for those of you that were able to make it, and it was just a fun way to start the year. So then the year started, as we all know, come Tuesday morning, kids returned to our schools across the district, and it's just been really fun to be out in schools, seeing what kids are up to. And so these are just a few of the many examples of things that were going on in our schools. So from the Mario game with the bodies in PE at Catherine Jones Harrison to College Hill, seeing those new spaces, including the servery. It's, again, that space is just phenomenal, and I can't wait for you all to get a chance to come see it, because it is, it looks so much different, and so many great improvements that have happened there. Then that is Kemi J, who works for Character Strong, and he went to all 3 of our middle schools to do presentations around Character Strong, which focuses on self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationships, and responsible decision-making. It was really fun for me to be able to visit the middle schools this week and see so much alignment in what was happening. And it was all about building that community, that strong community, clear expectations, and where we're going to go as a team. So that was really cool to see. More alignment there than I've seen in the past. So that felt really great. Students at Bessie Coleman in PE, again, just thinking about the way that they talk about their school and their spaces. At Garfield, students were creating words drawn on hearts that relate to the things that they love and value. And then finally, back at Linus Pauling, kids were learning about digital media literacy and how that impacts their lives and their safety and the use of device. So again, we really spent this week getting to know one another, having some fun and joy, so lots of smiles across our schools. And again, just a great way and a real positive way to start off the school year. So this is the first year that I haven't had students at CSD for quite some time, so it feels a little bit different. But I hope as parents who have kids at the schools, you got to feel that positive energy and vibe from your kids. So again, a great way to start the year. A couple of other things to highlight. Our business department, again, received the Meritorious Budget Award. This is year 6 that they've won that award. And it really has to do with the way that their budget is organized with clarity, accuracy, quality in the presentation. And so this is becoming sort of an annual event. And at the same time, prior to the last 6 years, they had never earned that award before. So again, a lot of appreciation to Olivia Myers-Book and her team to continue to be recognized year over year for that. And then 2 more things just before, as I'm finishing up. I wanted to talk about the board retreat and next steps. So again, thank you for being at the board retreat as members of the board and members of our community coming together to review the feedback we had last winter from community groups and to continue to focus on those board goal areas and putting together some really visionary statements. And so our plan is that our cabinet team will meet in the coming weeks to put together a draft that we can bring back to you so as we continue to move that work forward. So again, thanks for a heavy day of lifting. I'm sure everybody went home and slept well after all the thought that went into it. And now we'll take the next step and bring it back to you. One other thing just to be thinking about, the facilitator sent out an email on Tuesday just asking for one more call for feedback. So if you haven't had a chance to complete that, please do. And that went not just to the board members, but all the participants that day. So that will be one more piece of data that we'll have to look at. And then finally, as the year gets started, we did a lot of professional development. And a lot of the professional development this year was based on the work that you all did related to the adoptions that were made. So we had professional development in a lot of areas, elementary math and language arts, middle school English language arts, Spanish language arts and math, and at the high school around algebra and geometry, English language arts, French, German, Spanish, and Arabic. So again, a lot of curriculums have been adopted over the last couple of years, and we feel really good about the materials that we have been able to acquire because they have greater alignment with what we're trying to accomplish. And throughout the year, we'll be coming to you to provide updates about how those things are going. So again, it's one of those examples of the work that you do and that has an direct impact on what happens in classrooms, and the curriculum adoption process is one of those pieces. So again, thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Ryan. Does anybody have questions or comments for Ryan's report? I will say that we all failed to mention on our board reports who was at the back-to-school rally. We didn't report on that yet, did we? We didn't have a meeting? Yeah, no.
No, no,
Who was all there again? It was me, Sarah, Shauna, and Sammy? Yeah,
and Chris.
and Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, who was all there? Thank you. So that was all who, for back to our reports. And the speakers were awesome to hear. It was really a good way to start the year, I thought, too, to hear those stories and the highlights of the impact that teachers have and staff have that last a lifetime. And I know I took some lessons away, too, thinking about my role as a teacher in another capacity, too. I do have one question. For the feedback form, did that go out to people who were not able to make it that day, or only people that were in attendance? Like the whole invite list?
It went, I'm trying to think in my head because I looked at it with our facilitator. It went to specifically the people that were there that day.
Okay. Alrighty. So that is it for superintendent's report. Okay. We're gonna just hold on for just a second because we have folk for public comment and need to wait while they fill out their cards. And so it looks like Sammy has comments to help out here.
Reflect on. I have a comment to reflect on the back to school rally. Really, Ryan, thank you for inviting us there. And I know it's really important for us to learn about the work, and it is really a privilege that you trusted us to give us the invitation to see it up close.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to share names. We had a staff member who raised their hand to the question. Raise your hand if you love everything about your job, and that's their first day of work. So I'm hoping they're still raising their hand for that question. It was really beautiful to see that, excitement on staff. And Chris, thank you for organizing the food distribution. Distributing the food was really great to the families. Even though no grudges there, she assigned me for the sandwiches, and she got the burritos, and the burritos definitely had the longer line.
That's awesome. Who all helped with the lunch? I know you helped organize it, but you were there, Sammy?
It was just Sammy and I.
That's awesome.
And it was fun to
Yeah.
see all the staff and the excitement there, and burritos were the hot items, so.
Nice. That's great. Any other questions or comments for right now? We have one. We have a few public comments. So we're just, for folk tuning in, we're just giving community members a moment. What was that? Are we ready for public comment? Or okay. All right. So next on the agenda is public comment. We will now open the public comment period. So for each person who testifies, the complete guidelines for public comment are available on the registration table at the back of the gym and on the board's website. I will share a few important points now. When it is your turn to speak, please come forward and have a seat. State your name and direct your comments to the board. Let's see. Speakers may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs, but the board will not hear complaints concerning individual district personnel. So please don't do that, or we'll have to ask you to stop talking. As a reminder, you will have 3 minutes to make your comments. I will alert you when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. And there'll be lights on the board. The yellow flashes when there's 30 seconds left, right? And then the red means your time is up. Following your comments, the board will have 3 minutes to ask clarifying questions, and we use the same timer. Before you start your comment, please state your name for the record and state whether you reside within the school district boundary. And so, do you want to call the first person? Mhm. Can you adjust, Kim, are we doing translation?
Yeah, so we.
Can you adjust the timer for the translation? Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Myra Valencia, and I live here in Corvallis. It's my first time speaking. I'm a mother of 2 students at Garfield and Linus Pauline Middle School. I'm here to express my concern and need for a school bus route that takes my student and other 5 to 6 middle schoolers to school and back. I personally found out by a staff member at Linus Pauline that there is no route to our neighborhood located at Capri Villa on Circle Boulevard. This information was confirmed to me by a person at the bus company and a staff here at the school district. I was told that the reason for this is because we live less than 1.5 miles away from the school. I myself and other families are concerned not only because of our work and school schedules or distance, but mainly for our children's safety. If our students have to walk to school, they would walk along Circle Boulevard, which is a very busy street and is currently under construction. They would have to cross not only the railroad tracks, which I believe the train passes 2 times a day, but mainly Highway 99, which is a super high trafficked highway with hundreds of cars and trailers passing by. Highway 99 has a higher speed limit than other neighborhood streets and has no signs of children crossing to warn drivers. The fact is that semis take more time than regular vehicles to come to a full stop. We do have a small population of homeless people who live in that neighborhood too. So that is another concern for us that, there might be a situation where they come across one of them or something and they wouldn't know what to do or how to handle it, and we shouldn't expect them and to know what to do. It would be very devastating to lose one of our students due to lack of transportation. As a mother, my promise to my children is to give them a good education, but also to keep them safe all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Hola, mi nombre es María Yane González Martínez. Soy miembro de la comunidad de Corvallis desde el 2004. Desde entonces he crecido a mi familia aquí. Tengo 2 hijos, cuales asistieron a este distrito escolar. Mi mayor preocupación es que ahora mi hijo menor empezará la secundaria asistiendo al Linus Pauling School. Por lo tanto, les pido al distrito que les dé a mi hijo y a los compañeros a nuestra área un autobús de transporte a la escuela y a casa. De esta manera evitaríamos algún peligro al cruzar las vías del tren, una de las carreteras más ocupadas del tránsito en Corvallis.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Maria Janet Gonzalez Martinez. I am a member of the community of Corvallis since the year 2004. And since then, I have been growing, my family has been growing here. I have 2 children who have been students of this school district. My main concern is that now my youngest son will begin middle school, going to Linus Pauling Middle School, and therefore I ask of the district that you can provide for my son and other children in this area bus transportation that can transport them from the school to their home, and in this way we can avoid any danger in crossing the railway, the train rail, and one of the most busy highways of traffic in Corvallis.
Igualmente les recuerdo que por el 99 pasa mucho tráiler, transporte. Uno de mis temores es que mi hijo no se dé cuenta y cruce, y finalmente ya que su estatura, su mentalidad no es la de un adulto. Muchas gracias por su tiempo.
I also want to remind you that on the 99 highway, there is a lot of trailers of transporting, and this is one of my fears, that my son may not realize that it's coming and he may cross the street confidently, since his height and his mind is not that of an adult. Thank you.
Any questions? Gracias.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Mireya López Espinosa. Soy mamá de una niña que acaba de entrar ahorita a 6º grado.
Good afternoon, my name is Mireya Lopez Espinosa, and I'm the mother of a young girl who just came into 6th grade.
Ahorita venimos pidiendo de su apoyo para los niños lo que es el transporte, el bus.
We are here to request your support in providing transportation for the children, a bus.
Ya que los niños, pues ya las mamás anteriores han mencionado que tienen que cruzar por calles muy peligrosas.
Since the children, as the previous mothers have mentioned today, need to cross highways that are really dangerous.
Ya que porque, como ellos lo mencionaron, por allí pasan las vías del tren, tienen que pasarlas los niños.
As they have mentioned, they need to walk past the railroad tracks. The children need to walk past them.
También ya que mi niña, pues es una niña que ella le da miedo, un poco los carros, ya que somos nuevas en este país, apenas tenemos 3 meses que llegamos y ella todavía se siente insegura andar por las calles ella sola.
And my daughter in particular is someone who is unsure and afraid around the cars because we have been in this country for a short amount of time. We have been here for 3 months, and it is dangerous, and she's still scared of the cars.
Incluso yo, pues ya soy una persona adulta y todavía a veces me cuesta trabajo andar por las calles de aquí de Corvallis. A veces ahí me pierdo en las calles, pero pues tengo que prender mi teléfono para ver dónde es donde ando.
Even myself as an adult, I'm still getting used to navigating Corvallis and being familiarized with the streets. I still get lost sometimes.
Por eso es mi temor, no solamente con mi niña, sino con pues también los demás niños, pero más que nada mi niña, porque ella pues no conoce, ya no tiene la inteligencia, a lo mejor todavía porque pues apenas ella tiene 10 años.
And this is my fear mainly with my daughter, also with other children, but my daughter in particular, she doesn't yet have the savvy or the intelligence. She is 10 years old.
Por eso es mi temor y es que venimos con esta petición pues, para ver si pueden pues apoyarnos con lo del transporte para los niños, no solamente por mi niña, sino por los niños, más que nada también ahorita que ya se viene el tiempo de que llueve.
This is my fear and my concern that you can help us with transportation for the children, especially now that the rain season is coming.
Y pues por eso es que acudimos con ustedes con esta petición. Muchas gracias.
And this is why we approach you today with this petition. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Gracias.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Diana Ortiz. Tengo 4 niñas, una de 14 años, una de 11, una de 11 años, perdón, una de 9 y la más pequeña de 3 años.
Good afternoon. My name is Diana Ortiz, and I have 4 daughters. I have a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old. ¿De 9 y de qué más?
De la más pequeña de 3 años.
The youngest is a 3-year-old.
Mi hija de 9 años sí tiene transporte, pero mis otras 2 hijas mayores no tienen transporte, como la de que va a Linus Pauling. No tiene transporte porque al parecer vivimos muy cerca.
My 9-year-old daughter has transportation, but my older 2 daughters, the 11-year-old and the 14-year-old, who goes to Linus Pauling, they don't have transportation because apparently we live too close to the school.
Y mi hija de 14 años que va a la high school no tiene transporte porque al parecer, como ella no pertenece a esa escuela, no califica para el bus y tiene que ir demasiado temprano para ir a la escuela.
And my 14-year-old daughter, who goes to Corvallis High School, to CHS, she does not have transportation either because she doesn't belong in the
Caminando a la escuela.
she doesn't belong in the high school, so she doesn't have access to the transportation, and so she needs to walk to school.
Y a mí se me hace difícil llevar cada una de mis hijas a la escuela porque dos entran al mismo horario que sería a las 8 y la mayor tengo que llevarla en el transporte público a las 7 de la mañana.
It is really difficult for me to take all of my daughters to school since one of them goes in at 8 a.m. Disculpe, me confundí todo lo que me dijo.
Sí, que dos entran al mismo horario, pero una tiene que ir a las 7 en el transporte para llegar a tiempo público.
Two of my daughters need to go into school at the same time, and one of them needs to go on public transportation at 7 a.m. to make it.
Tiene que estar ella en la escuela casi una hora esperando para que empiecen las clases.
So she makes it to school, but then she needs to wait almost an hour until school starts.
Para yo poder alcanzar a llevar a mi otra hija en el autobús para que alcance a ir a la escuela.
And this is so I can make it so that my other daughter can make it to public transportation so she can go to school.
Y mi otra hija que también no tiene bus, tengo que alistarla para ir caminando a la escuela para que llegue a tiempo.
And my other daughter who doesn't have access to any bus, I need to help her get ready so that she can go to school walking.
Sí, el problema va a ser que ahora que llueva o esté haciendo frío, como tengo una niña de 3 años que sufre de asma,
And the main problem for me is that now that the season is starting to get rainy and cold, I have my 3-year-old daughter who has asthma,
y que tengo que llevarla conmigo para poder llevar a sus hermanas a la escuela.
and the main issue is that I need to bring her with me now to do all of these, taking all of my other daughters to school.
Y mi hija de 11 años que va a la Linus Pauling, ella tiene ansiedad.
And my other daughter, who is the 11-year-old, she goes to Linus Pauling. She suffers from anxiety.
Mi hija que está aquí es la que va a la escuela, a la high school. Tiene que levantarse a las 5 de la mañana para poder ella estar a tiempo para ir a la escuela.
My daughter, who is present, she is the one who attends high school, and she needs to wake up at 5 a.m. in order to make it to school.
Y al parecer es porque no calificamos para el bus. Yo me gustaría que nos ayudaran, porque aparte yo no puedo ir a trabajar porque tengo que llevar a mis hijas a tiempo a la escuela.
And this is apparently because we don't qualify for bus service. And I would like to ask you if you can help us, because I can't, on top of all of this, I can't go to work either because I need to make it to drop off all of my daughters to school.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? Gracias. Is there any more comment? That was it? Okay, I thought you said there was more, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
So Kim has been working to address the concern over the last couple of days. So do you just want to share a little bit of information with the board so we have that sense?
Sure. So when we heard about what was going on, I started looking into the bus and transportation. I don't know who to talk to. The transportation department to find out what was going on and our issues. We have a couple of issues right now with the fact that, oh, sure. I'm addressing you, but I can't, yeah, okay. Okay, so Because the students on Circle fall within the Sheltolin boundary, what has happened in the past is you've been bused, the students have been bused to Sheltolin and then caught a shuttle. But right now, our issue is, oh, sorry, okay. Okay. So I talked to transportation yesterday, and this year we have an extra challenge because the city of Corvallis has told us we cannot run any transportation on Circle until the end of September. So right now, there's a bus that is picking up on Bellevue and Lawndale. That is a temporary solution. At the end of September, we can start running transportation on Circle and stop at the entrance to the park. The other issue that came up is that any student that's in the ELL program has the opportunity, you need to talk to the principal to sign up for individualized transportation so that you will get transportation from your home directly to the school.
And finally, so then Marcianne will continue to connect with the families as we work through that piece. Thank you for coming and sharing with us so we can come up with a solution.
Kim, just to recap, so you said that part of the issue is this, because of the construction on Circle with City of Corvallis, like regulations because of all the.
Yeah, and they're not running the City of Corvallis buses
Yeah.
on Circle either. And apparently we can't do even individual transportation
Okay.
until after the end of the month.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the other thing you said was around, there was that DLI students can request transportation with the principals.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure to like
Because the
recap it for
principal
the.
puts in the request for the
Right,
transportation.
okay.
Yep,
Thanks so much.
yep.
Okay, so I think we are done with public comment. And the public comment period is now closed. Cool. And the next thing on the agenda is our bond update, and we have Dale with us this evening. You have a presentation for us, Dale? Dale said yes.
Dale's been doing these for 5 years. We're getting pretty close to the end of these,
Close, yeah.
which is an accomplishment, and it also feels like the kind of the end of an era hanging out with Dale. So I'm glad he's here. End of a long era.
Good evening, Chair Whitebear, members of the board, Dr. Noss. Thanks for having me. As Ryan said, it's been 5 years. Been a great experience for me and my entire team. In my cover letter for the monthly written report, I listed out the entities that are involved in a bond program. The number of people is staggering. It's in the high hundreds probably, when you look at all the contractors and consultants and internal staff and architects. It's a big number of people. So I'm so grateful to everybody that made this thing happen. Tonight's slides will focus on the completed projects that we have opened up this year, and we are really running out of work. So I'm not going to have much to report on after this. Oops. Adams is wrapped up. They got the new parking for bikes, and that's in a secured zone. There's new addition behind the school, which is a great feature, which mirrors the other similar schools that opened earlier. The cafeteria commons is bright and beautiful and a great place for the kids. New classrooms are well lit, they're spacious, they feel welcoming. In the lower left, you'll see the traditional roll-up glass door that we've been putting in all of the schools for art and science. They can function in or out. New music rooms, including daylight. These things are buried in the middle of the buildings, but the team figured out a way to get daylight into those spaces. And then the collaboration spaces that are being used by the teachers and the students. Mountain View, again, new music room. You can see the light in the upper left corner. Some real highlights to get daylight in there. The same science art complex with the glass door, and then the new staff lounge and office spaces. Outside, a whole bunch of new pavement, different configuration. The objective is to increase and improve the traffic flow in that area. I've heard that it's still a little confused, but once people get used to it, it'll be a big improvement. There's also going to be some additional curbing put in, which will also help guide and control the traffic flow. College Hill, it is a spectacular renovation, unique from all the others. The reception area, servery, it's called also, the new office. And then outside, fresh landscaping up front, new ADA parking, and the new entry porch. If you look at that little gable by the car, that used to be really low, and it was not welcoming at all. So that was replaced. Since we were doing the re-roof anyway, it was a great time to build that overhang a little taller. Classrooms at College Hill got a nice update. Polished concrete pretty much throughout. New furnishings in most areas. Franklin, similar, got a new art and science room. This one we didn't have a good way to get a rolling door in that space, but we did put a lot of light in it. Renovated gym, which does include a roll-up door that goes out to a new concrete terrace. That'll be a great way to kind of expand the eating area in that school. And then a really nice renovated library. And then there's a folding partition that separates those two spaces. If there's a need for a performance, that door can open, and then traditional scenery backdrops provide the backup for the presentations, flexibility. Even classrooms that didn't get much work still got new windows. They got ceiling fans and new lighting and a fresh coat of paint, so they all look welcoming and nice. And my last slide is just a collage representation of all the schools we've touched. So pick your favorite, but they were all they were all great accomplishments. They all got the bond promises that the voters wanted to see happen, and it all happened within the available funds. So thanks to everybody that made that happen.
Can you say that last sentence one more time?
Say that again.
Can you say that last sentence one more time?
Probably, if I can remember it. Thanks to everybody.
That all the bond project,
Oh, okay.
that all the bond promises within the available funds through issues of wildfire and COVID and supply chain, and we can go on and on and on. So again, so much appreciation for Wenaha and the team for making that a reality. We are in one of those spaces right now, and it's just, yeah, it's one of those things that I will always see as a high point in my career. So thank you so much for all the work that you've done to make that happen. We really appreciate it.
Me as well. There are certain projects and clients that stand out, and this one was definitely one of them. So thank you all.
Thank you, Dale. Anybody have questions, comments? I'm sure we have some, so I was like, go ahead, Sarah, and then
Yeah,
Sammy.
I just want to express my appreciation to Dale and all the contractors and all the staff who made this happen. I will admit that when I opened this report, I actually shed a few tears because it was like, we're here. And in March of 2020, when we were closing schools, my first worry was, how are we gonna feed kids? And then I had, how are we gonna teach kids? And then it was, we just broke ground on this bond project. How are we gonna do that? And here we are, and it's really been the highlight for the last 5 years to get these reports and see the work. And you all have been amazing stewards of the trust and the money that the community has invested in this work. And I just have so much appreciation for that. And it's great to see kids in these spaces that are really fabulous spaces to learn in. So thank you.
Thank you.
You made Corvallis better, and we're deeply indebted to the work that you've done. You did it with passion, professionalism, grace, and humility to listen to the community and make sure that we reflect to the community's values and perspectives of what West School should look like. So for that, really thank you. I hope you use the name of this project and the accomplishments of this project as a way to continue doing this work across the state and maybe beyond. So really appreciate what you've done, and I hope you take my personal strongest words of appreciation and endorsement to what you did and how you did it. And with that, I have a question. What's next?
We are helping Tillamook Bay build a new health education building. Let's see. Helping the Northwest Region ESD renovate a big office building into an early childhood learning center. Those are some of the highlights. Yeah.
If you would do this again, what would you embrace to do? What would you do again and embrace doing? And what would have you changed or done differently?
On the spot. I would embrace and do again the collaboration and equity-driven processes. I mean, when I came to Corvallis, I was a different person than I am now, and I attribute a lot of that to the learning that happened throughout. I was taken by surprise. I mean, the first summer I was here, we went to a 2-day session. I can't remember what it was. It was over in the farm center. Mm-hmm. But that was mind-blowing to me, the content that I absorbed there. So for me, that's what I would embrace, and I believe it made the projects, the entire program stronger. Partly because because all the voices were heard, they were considered and incorporated into the design, and that doesn't always happen. And so there's sometimes an undercurrent of dissatisfaction when that process is not used. So that's vital in my mind. I don't really want to come up with anything that wasn't good, so let's not do COVID again.
Yeah, really. Good answer. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I want to make sure that people understand that I sit here alone a lot, but it's a big team. My project managers, Patrick Linhart and Kieran Spellman, I think they spoke to you in the spring when I was ill. They did a ton of work. And then local expert Julie Haymart was kind of our accounting master, and she kept track of the books and helped me work on the budgets and do all that kind of financial work. Kaylee Simmons, our furniture, fixtures, and moving expert. I think everybody in the district would agree that her team just did spectacularly. So I wanted to make sure to thank my own team for that.
Other questions or comments? I was just gonna say, like, how are we supposed to pick our favorite? They're all so awesome. I noticed some new signs and reader boards up too at some of the schools, so that's cool to see all those. And when I was looking at the report, I was like, what Sarah was saying, I was like, wow, look at the, there's nothing under 99% done out of all of them. It's pretty awesome. Because I remember I was always looking at the percentages. I was like, oh, look at when we were having meetings and stuff. So it's cool to see it so close. And do you have an estimate of between your team and all the contractors and subcontractors and all that, how many people do you think were involved so far with the projects?
If I was to put a number on it, it's, you know, a dozen big projects, and each project will usually have, you know, 100 tradespeople on it doing work, and then all of the consultants and the architects and us and other folks. There's at least 100 of us. District staff, I couldn't count, but they were also a valuable addition to this team. Kim's leadership was, you know, very impressive. Paul Jennison and Tim Trivet, they were, you know, the old hand experts that really knew the buildings, and so for the renovation projects, tapping into their expertise was vital, and they just did wonderful things for the projects.
That's pretty amazing to think of how many like people it took and hands that touched all these buildings to improve them for the students and the staff and families and stuff. So it's really awesome to think it wasn't just like, you're saying like you're sitting here reporting it, but there's like all these like people behind you and with you throughout this whole project. So I appreciate you acknowledging all the work that went into it by talking about them too. But anything else? All right, thanks, Dale.
Thank you all.
Let's see, we have, let's keep on rolling. We got our summer program update next with Sabrina and Sean. You'll have some slides for us too, it looks like.
It's on now. Okay. I know the bond was really exciting, and it is great. Nice job, Dale. That's fabulous. But this is like the best thing you're gonna see for like all year. Not to brag, but like all the joy and goodness in the world exists right here. It is very exciting. So we are here to kind of talk about another amazing summer of summer programs. And I think what's fabulous about that is that I think if we had talked in April or May, we would be pretty nervous that we wouldn't get to have this conversation today. And I think that would be just such a tremendous disappointment because summer programs are magic, as Sean says, and they are magic. And so I'm super grateful that we actually get to have this conversation at all. And there's lots of magic to share. So there's like 7 million pictures in here, and I will not cut any of them, even though Sean was like, that seems like a lot of photos. And I was like, nope, it's not. We're doing all of them because we need a lot of joy, and there is a lot of that in this. I think what feels super important as we think about talking about what happened over the summer and why things happened over the summer, that we need to talk about that that lift was in partnership with the foundation. And without that partnership, we would not have had the program that we did. So we went scrounging and we dug up funds all over the place in our own budgets in terms of different places where we have our hands in different pots, but really the foundation showed up huge to partner with us and make this something that was substantial. I will try not to say this on every slide. That is my commitment, but this is not happening. Like, neighborhood districts are not pulling this off. It's not happening. They're not doing summer programs. And the fact that we could speaks to the amazing commitment of the foundation to be participating and work with us that we believe is most relevant and critical. And it's significant that we have their partnership in this. Ryan and I had the opportunity to visit with the foundation a couple of times. We had the opportunity to do a tour with them during the summer, and they are just so excited to be a part of this work and to be a part of what's happening. It was beautiful and awesome, and without them, we would have had some programming. We would have had small little pockets, but we didn't. We had a full, robust summer program, and that's amazing. So what you can see here is the foundation tour, which is kind of fabulous. We even got them all in our very classy summer program shirts. We even got Ryan to wear his, I think, once this summer, which was an improvement over last summer where we couldn't quite get him to put it on. So it was a big summer. We had lots of staff who worked at all of our sites. I will continue to say that we turned people away. And I think the thing about that that's so awesome, that's worth noting, is that staff really want to work in the summer, and I think that speaks to their experience of wanting to be connected to kids and wanting to be connected to families and wanting to work with each other. We had set out to really just hire internally, and we had to turn people away, which is a pretty remarkable problem to have. So lots of amazing staff. It's also a really important moment to shout out to the HR department, who, as I can remind you, is trying to do all of the hiring for the upcoming school year while we are telling them that what we need is more important and trying to hire 1 billion people for summer programs at the same time. It is a ridiculous lift by the HR department. It's unbelievable. We had staff, as you can see here, doing all different kinds of programs, and that's complicated for the HR department. So we are super grateful to them, and all of their work helped us have a very well-rounded, awesome summer program staff.
And it turned out to be just under 100 staff members that were working in a variety of capacities.
So we ran a number of programs, and we're going to walk you through the ones that we had this summer. This summer was the end of our kind of COVID recovery services for summer programs. And so we had a program at Garfield this year. We had a couple programs at Garfield, actually, at the same time. And we well used that nicely, thank you, Dale, building of Garfield. We used like every nook and cranny of that building for this program this summer. And that looked like a K-8 program for students who were maybe more significantly impacted by COVID, who needed kind of ongoing support and services, as well as a full bilingual kindergarten program in one section of the building, as well as multiple other providers and service providers who were coming. One of the things we talked about that was kind of beautiful about this is the ESD has historically they have a pretty, I would say rigid, but that sounds a little negative, tight schedule that they don't tend to work in the summer. And over the past summers, as we have been doing more and more work, we've been kind of wearing them down. And this summer, we had ESD people that were just so excited to be there, who were at programs and working all summer and just pumped about giving kids services all summer instead of having this huge gap in time. So we had students who potentially are like vision impaired, whose Braille list was actually meeting meeting with them all summer, things that would never happen, where you would typically have this huge gap in services and huge gap in opportunity, full of providers and people and work. It was amazing. And we had incredible staff, including student volunteers.
And through this, most of the work was done in 3 different compartments: our elementary, our middle, and our high school levels. And so Garfield was one of the elementary schools that had the K-8 program. And you can see some of the staff and the students that are there.
Ooh, go back, there's something fun to say about that picture. The picture on the right is a very fun picture in the sense that the kinder teachers got wind that we had all these great kids and were like, well, why aren't we doing all this buddy work between the kinders and the kids in the COVID recovery program? And by the end of the 3 weeks of programming, we had all this overlap between the kinder academy and our elementary kids, and they were building boats and doing murals and doing activities together, and it was beautiful and awesome. And don't rush too much because it's all the joy. Just look at it. It's beautiful. It's amazing. So good. We also had a Kinder Academy program at Lincoln. So Kinder Academy has been running for, Amy? Lots of years? 7, 8 years. And that's just been an amazing program that Amy has worked with other partners with who have run that, and it just continues to be this beautiful space where kindergartners have an opportunity to come and practice some school-ready skills and make connections and enter into their school spaces. And we had one at Lincoln and one at Garfield, and it was excellent and beautiful and wonderful. And both of those programs ran a bilingual program, which I think is also just a lovely opportunity to start to get your feet in what's coming in the months ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So at the middle school level, our focus was really 2 different pieces. Recognizing that at Garfield we had the COVID recovery, and those were 6th through 8th graders that were present in a different wing. We also had 2 other programs. One which was sponsored by the Corvallis School Foundation, which is our Latino Youth Enrichment. And here you'll see photos where they actually were doing mini businesses, where they had to come up with their own plan. They got money to go and purchase the items that they needed. And we got to get a sales pitch during the tour that we had with the Corvallis Public School Foundation. And students were creating queso. They were creating strawberry shortcakes.
Well, you could ask Brian, because I'm pretty sure he helped fund the program. He ate all of it.
The donut, there was a donut there, and it was just a great opportunity to continue to enrich students that may not have had that access during the summertime. There was also work with our math mindset. So these are students that were 5th graders going into 6th grade, to get them acclimated just into the building a little bit, but also recognize that they needed to have a little bit more exposure and more opportunities to fall in love with math that's not drill and kill in that capacity. So that one was a 2-week program that was led by 2 of our staff members. And there were people actually continuing to knock at the door. They said, hey, we didn't hear anything about this. How do we get involved in it? And so unfortunately we had to turn some folks away, but that really continues to show the importance of being able to offer that.
We had 2 significant things that happened at the high school level, as well as our life skills program meeting. We had credit recovery, which most of you are familiar with. Matt McDonough, our amazing school counselor at Corvallis High School, ran that for the 3rd year in a row. And he's dynamite as our summer program high school site lead. He keeps them well fed and happy and coming, which is pretty phenomenal. And then we also had a math camp that was for incoming 9th graders, kind of same work that's happening for the incoming sixth graders. And I think, you know, the piece about that speaks to is kind of the work that particularly Amy and Nikki and Kim have been doing at large around math, and how are we really just invigorating students around math and their perspectives and engagement with that. So that program happened at the high school as well. Credit recovery, I think the piece of note, there's always lots of things to note about that, include not just the food, but that is a big hit with all of them, is our attendance for high school credit recovery was over 90% every single day of the program. And that was actually true for attendance for all of our programs. So there's something about that to me that just speaks to, at a time when statewide and nationally, a school attendance is at one of its lowest trends in history. Our summer programs had some of the highest attendance rate Corvallis has seen in years, in the sense of we had a huge level of participation. We awarded over 73 credits out of our 240 seats, which is awesome. And I know that the foundation is very excited about the work that happens at high school credit recovery and is eager to double the class options for next year. Sorry, Jennifer, that is going to be available. And so we just appreciate that because it's a significant moment for students. I think one of the pieces that's worth talking about there is I see it working twofold. It provides students an opportunity to gain credit that's lost, but almost more importantly, it provides students a connection opportunity, and that's what we actually hear back from kids. We have a beautiful letter from a student who said, coming to summer programs was a total game changer for me because I built relationships with Mr. McDonough and these teachers, and I felt suddenly comfortable in this space that's always felt awkward. And there is just something beautiful that happens in that moment where it's smaller and there's a lot of connection. And so I just don't want to undersell that the credits are critical, but there's a lot more happening there than just credits.
Likewise, how we had our life skills at the high school, we also utilized time for WINGS students. So these are students that are 18 through 21 years old that are in adult transitions. They're preparing for it. And so there was an opportunity to continue to make that happen. And so students were able to go out into the community, continue some of their work experience, and continue to stay connected with that school staff. Oftentimes these students are ones that are regress or have a little bit of regression during that summer opportunity. And so once again, be able to stay engaged with that community, stay engaged with the staff.
Similar to past years, we were able to, thanks to funds from the foundation specifically, continue to pay family advocates, mental health therapists, and mental health skills trainers to continue their work all summer long. So not just the weeks that we ran summer programs, they continued to work the whole summer. That's a huge thank you to the foundation. We continue to advocate that families and students need services to be a 12-month commitment, as needs don't disappear in the summer, and in fact, lots of needs show up in the summer specifically. And so the foundation has continued to be a tremendous support in allowing us to do that, and we were able to. Advocates worked all summer, keeping families connected to resources, dealing with evictions, dealing with water and lights shut off, right? All the things that happen all year, advocates continued to serve families. Our mental health therapists served students and families all summer long, providing ongoing therapy services. So that's a huge thing. As you can see here by this charming photo, this photo gets a shout out because today was Joe Lycom's last day at work for the Corvallis School District, which is a huge loss to us, and a practically undeserved gain to good Sam, who stole him away from us. But he, for the last 3 summers, as you know, has helped to hold that program with Sarah Devine and make sure that those services happened, and he did so again this summer. Who doesn't love that slide? Isn't that the best? So Ryan's hearing was checked. It's up to him to share how that went. That's his personal health information.
And there's actually a connection to why this is that at the health fair, the community resource fair last year, I had the fortune of actually volunteering to be one of the hearing screening folks there. So I was working with our speech language pathologists. And I was really excited, and I was like, I'll get to put it on students' ears, and I'll get to press the buttons. And so I was like, show me how to do it. And I put it on, and during that time I was pressing, and I said, I'm actually not hearing the sound. And so it turns out 3 months later, after an audiology exam, I now have hearing aids because I had an unknown hearing loss that was discovered during one of our resource fairs. And so there's a great connection and also a joke and say, Ryan, you need to go and get your hearing checked too, right? Everyone needs to do that, even adults. So we did it with students and their parents that were with them. We were able to check them and say, here's where you're at for it. So it was quite awesome.
So this was our third year having the Resource Health Fair, and Kelly's going to talk a little bit about it because she and Joe really did the massive lift that is the health fair.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So, yeah, this was our third annual Community Health and Resource Fair, which is pretty incredible. We had some really great key partners this year, including Casa Latinos Unidos, we had Samaritan Health Services, we had IHN-CCO, and Benton County Health Services. So they really helped us be able to continue to add to the breadth of services that are provided, and also the ways in which we can support families kind of in maybe non-traditional ways, but that make their attendance possible. We had 34 agencies that offered to do tabling. So we did lots of planning. We did walkthroughs ahead of time, and shout out to our facilities staff, to our campus steward and staff at LP who helped make those possible so that we could walk through and show people the space. They had the day of, I mean, they just showed up and were so excited. They had really great swag, which drew a lot of kiddos and families. We also were able to have a table that had school registration information and support, and families could sign up for free and reduced lunch on the spot. And then we had Tacos Al Machine who was there, and we provided over 500 tacos to families. So that's one of the ways we know how many folks were there, because we ran out. They had to leave. Overall, I think what we heard was that families were incredibly grateful. The services that they were able to access, we had hearing, dental, vision screens, we had well child visits, there were vaccinations. The sports physicals was really interesting. We actually didn't have enough providers on site because the need was so high, and Samaritan called another provider in to come in and do sports physicals because there were so many needs. And then we did measurements for Operation School Bell. And so the other thing that we were able to do this year was to survey attendees and vendors and just kind of get a little bit of a sense of what resources were there that were good and or what was missing. And then we also were able to ask where they heard about the event, so that can help us target kind of our promotions for next time. Overall, folks had really positive things to say. A couple things that we identified that might be valuable in next year's event is to close the street between Garfield and Linus Pauling. There was just so much energy, and of course that's a safety thing as well, and who wouldn't love to have a street closed off and have kids chalk? So that's one of the things on our list for next year. We also talked about having STA on site to talk about transportation, maybe having our HR department to talk about some of our openings. We know a lot of times we have families that work in our district, and most of the things that we heard in terms of feedback, some of them were things we actually had on site. So folks had said, it'd be great to have interpretation here, it'd be great to have navigators, and we had those. So that tells us that we need to do a little bit better job of making sure that families who come know that those services are available. Most just said it was great, that they didn't have any improvements, that they really appreciated it. And the vendors that we spoke to said it really helped them reach populations that they don't typically serve. So I think overall, it was just great. The energy was good. We were there during points in the day, and it just was fabulous to see families coming with lots of kiddos, and folks who even don't have kiddos in our district came and were able to kind of see the things that we're doing and thought it was pretty amazing. So can't
Thank
sing
you,
the
Kelly.
praises high enough.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And for those of you that got to see it, I think one of the pieces that stood out to me this year was we didn't have scouts. Like usually, you know, a family will send like one person or two people that come and kind of like check out what's happening. And I think since it was the third year, we had whole family units coming, which is kind of beautiful and fabulous. And people were accessing a ton of services. I think one of the pieces I heard from partners was it felt like the first kind of meaningful fair like this where they weren't just saying, here's what we do, but families were stopping and actually asking about their services, signing up for services, doing kind of what I think of as like the step after, great, thank you for the swag. And so that's really important to me, that we're not just kind of promoting partners, but actual connections were made.
We're not just handing out brochures.
Yeah.
We're actually doing the work.
It was awesome. So Sammy knows. He came, I think he even had a taco, I don't know, but it was good. It was excellent. It's true.
Yes.
It's true. I think it's important to talk about all of the people who make summer programs happen, including Dr. Ryan Noss, who served snow cones on the regular, which was a big hit with all of the staff and students, to be fair. And that, I think, also promotes the magic of summer programs, because it was just a lot of smiling, and that was kind of fabulous. So, but it is also true that without all of the district departments, there is no summer programs. And so I think one of the pieces that we continue to want to emphasize as we think about the sustainability of running programs in the summer is there is no isolated department that holds it anymore. It's an entire district venture and commitment, because every department is involved and is a part of that work. And so it really is important for us to remember it's something we're all committed to and we're all holding, because it's a whole district program at this point. When I think about next, I think there's three things that come to mind for me. One is it really, for me, just continues to emphasize that critical relationship we have with the foundation and how amazing it is to have them be partners with us in a way that acknowledges what we need and what's happening and what would be most useful. And I'm just grateful for that. And I think that that partnership will just continue to grow as we become more and more integrated. As some of you know, we were awarded the 21st Century Grant, which is amazing, and the product of great work from both Amy and Melissa, which is incredible. And that will allow us a lot of future summer programming opportunities. So that grant helps us think about summer programming for elementary school students for the next 5 years. And that is something that's awesome to get to think about. Between that and our partnership with the foundation, I feel really confident that I could actually start planning summer programs now and not the last week of May, which is good for my blood pressure, and I'm grateful. So that's an awesome thing. I think the last point for me is that though we're in a biennial budget, and so we know that there won't be funding that comes for summer programs next year, just like there wasn't last year, I don't want that conversation to disappear, not just for our sake, but for when I think about the work of schools across the state and the importance of the things that can happen in the summer. I think it's important for us as a product of the goodness to be able to continue to talk about that and advocate for that at a state level as we think about people looking to future budgets. I don't want to lose sight of that and the lull that happens between COVID and the next budget cycle, that this is a conversation that needs to stay alive and something that people need to talk about for sure. So thank you to you for your support and to the foundation for their amazing support, because we had a fabulous summer of programming.
Thanks, y'all. Any questions, comments? See Sarah?
Yeah, I just want to give you a warning, because a couple weeks ago I was reading the Hechinger Education Report, and they had an article about summer programs, and it was basically say they don't make enough impact and families don't want to come. And they talked to a couple school districts, and I just felt like you went to the wrong places.
Yeah.
So sitting here listening to your report, I think I'm going to email that journalist and say, you need to get a broader exposure to this, and maybe send them the link to our board meeting. So if you get a random call from the Hechinger Education Report.
I'm happy to give a counter story.
Yeah. So, but thank you. We will definitely continue to advocate for summer funding, because it's just so clear that it makes a huge impact, and we're not having trouble finding students to attend at all. No. I think I would send my kids if I could, but they don't really need to go. So Yeah, I think it's amazing the work that happens in the summer, so thank you for that.
And I think that's also through the hard work of the intentionality of who we're trying to serve and how we're reaching out to them and how we're gaining and keeping them present.
Yeah.
So that's the things that I typically, as someone who joined 2 years ago from Alaska, I've never seen the intentionality of summer programs to the extent that we're able to do. And that's the awesome piece.
Yeah.
Did you have something?
This is a completely unscientific sample size, but I was at a community activity and I was doing my little activity, and the two people next to me were talking about their child was in a summer program, and he's neurodiverse, and this was his first year in the summer program, and the parent was really excited for the upcoming school year because of how much more stable and how much more fun this child had over the summer, and how this parent thought that their child was going to be much more successful going into the incoming school year. And this is just one person. I didn't say anything, but I was definitely being nosy. And I wanted to share with you that I had heard that impact, and I was really excited for this update tonight, just having been preconditioned to be really excited by hearing this parent talking about it.
Thank you for sharing that.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Sammy. I was looking at you. I was checking Therese too, but I knew Sammy had something.
Just want to say, wow, thank you. I think the return over investment is evident. It's not just because we were Corvallis, it's because of the hard work that we have done in Corvallis to get there. And really kudos to everybody who contributed to this result. And I appreciate you highlighting the 3 points at the end. Because the work continues, we can't take this work for granted as something sustainable unless we sustain it. And that's what we're doing today. We're sharing the success of this summer. And really, the return over investment is phenomenal. Seeing the smiles over the kids during the resource center and getting fitted for a backpack. I never got fitted for a backpack. Yeah. And I was like, this is important. I remember the back pain. Well, I still have back pain maybe because of that. And those small things we do during those events, I think, are really setting kids for success in their health and education. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I think I want to really contemplate on the points you mentioned. We shouldn't wait until the next biennium session, and I'm going to lean on my colleagues, especially Luhui in your leadership within the caucus, and Sarah in your leadership within the Legislative Policy Committee representing the region. If we can advocate for probably a work session, for the legislator to hear this story, and if there's any similar stories to it, put a face on summer programs, and to know that they are crucial for the success that we can do through that. And I think a few questions I have, not for now, maybe for later on, is scientific, again, cost per student, how much we invested, how many students attended. Those numbers might be very valuable for some people who are curious about that side of the programming. But you already sold it for me that we got to do it. We got to do it in every school district. And I'm really grateful. We're planning for it right away because you're doing the right long-term planning for it. And congratulations on this phenomenal grant. It's really hard to get, and I appreciate you putting the effort and getting that result. And I understand it's 5 years of funding.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Sammy. Did somebody have any? No? Yeah, okay. I did have it's not necessarily a question for me, but in case community members were listening and were like, that sounds so amazing, how come I didn't hear about it? Can you all talk a little bit about like that part for folk to understand, like how students were selected and that kind of, because I mean, I'm like, I want to send my kids to summer school, but they don't, like Sarah said, may not need it, so.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, snow cones, right? Who doesn't want to go? It's appealing to everybody. Yeah, so let me talk about that probably in different programmatic ways. So we didn't have as many seats at credit recovery as we would want up front. We ended up getting to do more than we kind of anticipated, but even still, there was more students to be served than we served. So Nikki, our coordinator for the high schools, worked with the administrators on kind of creating a prioritized list of how to determine kind of, I think about complex intersectionality and thinking about students who could benefit the most from more time, more space, more connection. And they really worked as a team, high school administrators with Nikki, to really come up with a prioritized list, and that's what we worked from for credit recovery. We also had opportunities for wings for high school, middle, and elementary about students, particularly students with disabilities, who maybe were more significantly impacted by the gap of instruction during COVID or other areas where just gaps are more significantly impactful. And so those students were identified at the school level and or by their IEP team, who kind of identified as a team, this is something we really need for our child to be beneficial. So that would have happened in that setting. We have worked with community partners historically to identify kindergartners, incoming kinders, who might benefit from an opportunity to get a slower, softer entry into the school. And that's something where we've worked with our EI partners, right, early intervention partners, and or other kind of preschool partners in the community, as well as just families that we know and families that we're connected to in particularly the Lincoln and Garfield communities, where we wanted to provide kinders an opportunity to come. So I think each program probably had some unique identifiers. One of the programs we didn't get to talk about a ton, which was a grant foundation program, was a great program Kate Barron did from College Hill with some students who went hiking. They did a bunch of day hikes, and then they ultimately did an overnight backpacking trip. Super awesome program, very cool opportunity for kids to get out in the wilderness, do something they don't normally do. And so that's something where Kate worked with students through the College Hill program to kind of identify kids that would want to do that and could be interested and participated, and they had a great opportunity. I'd say the same was true about our Latino youth program, where Holly Olvera, our amazing teacher from Linus Pauling, worked with students in her classes and programs at Linus Pauling and was able to identify kids who would be interested. So in that case, it kind of becomes very program specific. I think the overarching umbrella is our commitment to thinking about students who are potentially more impacted by intersectionalities that might not provide them with as many of those opportunities if we just let the system run its course. And so the real intention is to interrupt those patterns and make sure that we're calling into the system and program kids who may not have had that opportunity.
Awesome, thank you. And just really quick for community members that may not know what intersectionality means, it's the overlaps of different needs and perhaps oppressions and stuff like that too. Just wanted to help people with the vocabs that may not have that. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. We all should
I
walk
know.
around with a glossary.
Judah said, "Thanks, Professor." Yeah, I won't do a whole lecture on intersectionality, even though I can. Yeah, but thank you all very much. And I know we went a little bit over on y'all's report, but we were ahead, and it was exciting to hear from you all. And I know we all had questions and comments too. So thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I kind of wanted to get through the staff reports. That way, if they needed to leave, they could. And we should go ahead and take a break before we go into a bunch of board stuff too. So yeah, let's take a 5-minute break. Do I have to say we're recessed for break? We're recessed for break. I'm not gaveling. Okay, the board is back in session from our break. Thanks, everyone. The next item on the agenda is board member stipends, House Bill 2753. The board had an opportunity to review information regarding the passage of House Bill 2753 and board member stipends. There is no action this evening, and the floor is open for discussion. Yes.
I do want to make a comment on this because I think it's really important, and I hope that if there are individuals listening or watching later that feel like there might be financial limitations like paying for childcare or transportation for running for elected office, I was really happy to see this bill pass to make sure that there isn't maybe necessarily so much of a financial barrier for individuals seeking to serve in public office, and really excited to see this get out there and to make public service in this role more equitable for all individuals.
Thanks, Judah. You got something, Therese?
I was just wondering if you Yes, I can. I wanted to ask you if you could take a moment and provide like a 30-second synopsis of what this House bill is, and so that there's some context for why we are having discussion.
Right, okay, so House Bill 2753 just passed with the last legislation, and I was like, Sammy can do this too. You want to add in after I'm done, Sammy, that's great. But it basically gives board members the ability to receive a stipend for their service. Previously, that was not allowed through Oregon, and it now is. And the amount that was passed was $500 per month, and the funding will be handled through the districts. And part of it was what Judah was saying, was allowing board members to be able to basically reimburse themselves for things like childcare or just time in general, and other needs like transportation, perhaps even having to buy a meal eating out before the meeting since it is in the evening. That can be a barrier, cost barrier for some folk and their families. And so there's a lot of uses for it. It's not to make major cash as a board member, but it can provide an opportunity for more members of the community to feel like they can serve because some barriers are removed. And Sammy, do you want to add anything, or did that cover it all?
Absolutely. I think you covered it very well. One thing that is going to be possible to change every year, starting from 2024, is to adjust it with inflation, so that amounts could change. And that's where I believe OSB, Oregon School Board Association, recommends that an annual action is taken to ratify it and also re-adopt it, and also adjust the amounts accordingly, depending on that formula that will follow. And also, one thing to add is the law was introduced by House Representative Ben Bowman, who was a school board member, and what he heard, and also we heard through the caucus members and potential prospective board members who are thinking about running, if they ran, or folks who had to step off of school boards across the state, that it's helped people with what you mentioned, sometimes with basic needs, sometimes with the critical needs associated with their service, security cameras at their homes, or food, or health insurance payments, whatever it is that makes it possible for them to serve. And definitely, as the law is written, if the local board pass it, then it is up to individual board members to opt to take it or not take it. And if they do take it, it doesn't change our status as volunteering board members. We're not employees of the district. We continue to have the same capacity.
Thanks, Sammy. And it doesn't violate the, one of the other things about it, it doesn't violate any of the, I can't remember the name of it right now. What is the thing we file every year? The financial piece. The ethics, yes, thank you. I was like, the SEIs, yeah, it doesn't violate those filings, and it is taxable too. That was the other thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. So there will be a clarification from the Ethics Commission about the statements of economic impact. My understanding, we should
Right, thanks. And thanks for asking for that, Therese. I forget sometimes. Yeah. Any other comments from board members? Oh, go ahead, Therese.
Thank you. I do think that was a great summary. I want to just echo the opportunities I think something like this could provide for more diversity of representation on a school board. Right now, and for my time on the board, historically, we have had folks whose jobs allow them to figure out how to negotiate being here, and so they are not missing paid hours to be able to participate in these meetings or be able to take off and go to an event in the middle of the day at a school. It's a wonderful privilege. It's a really, for me, one of the parts of being on the board that I so enjoy is getting to be out and watch our staff and our students actively participating and learning and co-creating together, and it's really wonderful. And also that wouldn't be possible for my family if I had to use all of my my paid time off, or also very realistically not be a person who has paid time off and so is losing out on hourly wages to be able to participate in something like this. So I think there's some really great opportunities for increasing who feels within our community like this is a viable way that they can serve. So I really appreciate the thoughtfulness behind how that could work as an equity, a tool for equity. And also, I want to be aware that like this is something that the community is likely to have thoughts or reflections about. And so I just want to make sure that we're open to feedback and that folks feel like it might be, I could see how it could be weird to send an email or come and make public comment to people who hold the opportunity to vote on whether or not we're going to adopt this thing, and may at least are setting themselves up for the potential of a financial benefit of compensation, reimbursement, probably realistically, but either way, I want to recognize the awkwardness that might be, and I just, for myself, I don't know how I will talk about this without just naming that. It feels unusual to be in a position where we have the opportunity to pass this, and then also we are the people that will have to then decide if we are going to take advantage of and make use of this or not. And so that's it. I don't have anything more to say about that except just I want to just say that feels uncomfortable a little bit, and I don't know how I will think through this process without making that, being transparent about that.
I had one question that I was sort of wondering about, and I know board members can choose individually whether or not they will accept the stipend. I was wondering if board members could choose to not receive the whole stipend. Because if you were somebody who you need to pay for daycare, but that didn't take $500 a month to pay for the daycare during the meeting, that you could decide, okay, this is how much daycare is going to cost for 3 meetings a month or whatever in the evening, and that's what I need compensation for. Can you choose to say, I don't want the $500, I want, $300?
Sarah, I'll write that one down and get some information back to board members, because I feel pretty comfortable in an answer, but I want to be confident.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sammy, I know you're saying you don't want us to like be like pat ourselves in the back. I'm always surprised when we send in our hours to Kim. Like when we're like how many hours we actually do spend as board members. It's more than the meetings, and I don't know, like I know when I was put in my application when I was appointed, I was like, I did not know it was gonna be that many hours, but I'm also get really passionate about work I'm involved and volunteer for. This is an ongoing convo between me and Sam. But it is something I think about, and like as a single parent, like how many meals I have had to like do for takeout. And it doesn't necessarily have to just, I want to make sure it's clear to the community that if board members accept the funding, it does not have to just only go for stuff that we're giving examples of. What we're trying to do is help the community understand some of the benefits for folk who may not have been able to run in the past because of some of those barriers. And so, like Teresa's saying, I feel like an incredible place of privilege with my position that I have professionally to be able to have a little more flexibility around things. And so that's where some of that comes into play too that other folk may not have. And so thanks for pointing that out, Teresa. And yeah, I did have one question about like the funding part of it, because it comes from the district, and how that would get covered and how, if we would be okay with things, but yeah.
So this was put into place after we developed the budget for this school year. So we have not allocated funding specifically for this in our budgetary process.
Okay. But would be, I'm like, okay, we're not voting on anything, so we don't need all the details right now, but yeah.
One of the things I was hoping I would get from the discussion is questions that people have. So one of the questions I have thus far, as in this instance, I feel like I'm more of a listener than a participant, is just the piece about the scenario that Sarah brought up. Can I accept 300 of a stipend rather than 500 if the stipended amount is 500? The second question I'm hearing, I think I hear based on what you just shared, was while it was not budgeted for this year, are there avenues or ways that we could consider that currently? So that's another piece that I would look into and provide some feedback on as this came forward for a first reading. And then if there's other questions that folks have, I'd want to be able to know those, because again, we can answer those as we come forward.
I have a question for going forward is if in the next, let's say for the next biennium, we add this to the budget and not all board members elect to take that stipend, where can that money, how does that money go back into the budget also? Can it return to the general fund, things of that nature?
It would stay, and again, I'll get clarification because our business manager is not here tonight, but we would stay within that line in the budget and through that year as the budget gets built for the next year. So while the state has a 2-year biennial budget, the district has an annual budget, and so it would be put in on that line item, and then it would be maintained there on whether or not it was encumbered. And then the following year, it would go back into the general fund if it's not used.
I know we're going a tiny bit over, but I want to make sure we get through this combo too. I see your mic unmuted, sir. And Therese too.
I do have one more question.
Okay.
So my question is, it says that this is set up, this is monthly. I'm assuming then that the implication is this is 12 months. Is there flexibility within the board, the individual board decision to say, well, we don't typically meet in July, so we're not going to do it in July? What flexibility is there with regard to that? Also, what's the nightmare for the district?
Yeah.
If we start doing things like, even if we can say we're not going to accept the whole amount, someone can't opt for a lower amount, how much work does that put on the district to have these individualized plans? Even an individualized plan of half the board says that they'll take it, the other half says no. Then one more question on that line is, when you say no, can you change your mind? And when can you change your mind? And what does that look like? And if you say yes and then you want to change your mind, what does that look like? Because I do worry about how many changes could get processed with 7 people in the course of a year if we're allowed to really construct this any way that we would like. So some parameters around that and some guidance from the district around what you would recommend for parameters, I would find very helpful.
Okay. You want to ask a question?
Is it really, yeah, and then we'll go, is that okay, Sarah, because you were next? Okay.
No, I'm good.
Oh, your mic's on, that's why I thought you were
Oh,
next,
sorry.
yeah. Okay, go ahead, Sammy.
I'm just trying to summarize steps forward. We're going to get questions answered, and also, if I may, should share what I believe is sentiments, maybe my personal sentiments, and maybe thumbs up, is what we're wanting to know is how can we do it in a way where we reduce the burden on district staff or have minimal burden on district staff, be cognizant of our budget and cognizant of not impacting our services for the children if we opt to do this work and the way we do it and when we do it. That's the sentiments I'm hearing, and I would be supporting as well.
Well summarized.
And thanks for the summary, and I think I have all those down.
Okay. I think we're good. No other comments? Okay. Alrighty. So we're going to move on from that and come back to it. If the community has thoughts on that, feel free to email us it's board@corvallis.k12.or.us. Yes, that goes to all of us. And you can also find that easily on the webpage. Yikes, that was loud. Or if you want to do public testimony next time, that's available as well. So the next thing is reviewing the board norms is next on our agenda. And I was having issues accessing board books, so I'm pulling it up on my phone right now. And it was adopted last October 13, 2022.
This comes forward on an annual basis. It started, I think my first year in this role, we had some OSBA training, and out of that we identified both the board norms and also the superintendent and board working agreements. And so some years there's been changes, other years it's been a process of just reviewing them. With new board members, it's always valuable to spend a little bit of time on that. So for both the next 2 agenda items, I think tonight it's more, again, it's about discussion, and then if there are clarifications that need to be made or modifications, then we'd bring it back for adoption.
Does anybody have comments on the board goals or suggested revisions, perhaps? Go ahead, Sarah, then
I
Therese.
have something that's not sort of the meaning of anything, but the way it's written, we have several places where we have sort of points where it starts out, the board does this, the board does that, and then it changes to leaving out the board and actively listen. So it's just, I guess, when I was reading it, I was realizing it needs to be cleaned up a little bit in how it's written. It's not consistent, and it's not an emergency. I don't, like, if this is gonna take a ton of work and time, it's not a hill I'm gonna die on, but
So
as I was
under-
reading it, I was like, this is just awkward to me right now.
Under
A.
1 through 5.
Yeah, it's A1 through 5, and then there are a couple places. It's in both documents that it happens, I think.
It's in C as well.
It's in B, it goes down to the 3rd one under B, and in C, it's the 2nd one.
Okay.
So just make them consistent so that next year I don't look at it and go, ah.
Go ahead. I think, Therese, you had something, right? And then Shauna?
I did have, I was going to make that point as well, so I second Sarah on that. It's funny because this came up at the board retreat. We were wording our, the goals, and like our group had a lengthy discussion about whether or not to say, like to include a noun. And so I'm laughing because I'm like, yeah, actually it's in all of our documents. I'm not sure what that says about us as a group. But anyway, I would like to just suggest that we revisit the reference to using time wisely by just taking out that statement and just saying the board will engage in relevant and topical discussion based on agenda topics, because I still continue to feel like the term "will use time wisely" is probably, it's like very subjective, and what I would consider wise, I'm so positive 5 of you would not. And so who exactly are we going to use to interpret that idea? It just seems unnecessarily ambiguous, and we just could remove it and just say we're going to engage in relevant discussion. That's it.
I appreciate that comment, Teresa. I think I've commented on the time thing several times. And speaking of time, and the same with the start and end on time. Like, we do our best, but sometimes have gone over a lot or have ended early. And so that's where it's kind of, the way it's written is very rigid and structured and does not align with different cultural perspectives on time either. Was it? Shauna had something, yes.
So in looking at the intro sentence around, which provide guidance regarding meeting operations and communication, I'm curious what other board members think, or what other staff think too, around that not fully capturing all the ways that the board is engaging. And so in addition to meeting operations and communication, just thinking about community engagement as well, or engagement, and thinking about the listening sessions that were conducted last year, as well as all the different ways board members show up in community, as in schools and other. So in thinking about that, a couple of thoughts have come to me. One, it could just be a very simple mention and addition of that in that statement regarding meeting operations, communication, and engagement with the school community, and then the underlying A, B, and C fitting into that, or thinking about another section of how we approach board work, how we meet, how we engage district staff, how we engage in the community. I think that there are some very relevant points under some of the others that also relate to that, but we don't necessarily call it out, so I just wanted to name that.
I think that makes sense, and like reading it, this looks like very much focused on board meetings, right? And so you would be saying, like, we might need a D then, right? Like community engagement as part of the norms. So I think the idea of, is it board norms or is it board meeting norms, right? And so that could be helpful in clarifying that.
I'm having a difficulty visualizing the structure you're talking about. Could we see some drafts before our next meeting to see how it flows? Just internally, I can't rearrange my information that
I
way.
think last time we did this, somebody volunteered. Didn't Vince help? No, he didn't help with this one. Did he? Was it this one? It was like somebody volunteered, and I'm pretty sure it was Vince, on like doing some cleanup and proposing it to us. Yeah.
I'd be happy to volunteer to do that based on those couple of thoughts, just for consideration, and if there are any other thoughts that come up too.
I have, oh, go ahead.
And I'd be happy to work with Shauna,
Okay.
based on the other pieces that have been listed out beyond the community engagement aspect.
My suggestion is about board members being allowed to speak twice to each agenda item. I don't think we really follow that. And so, I mean, I understand that it's a thing that's,
And Roberts.
it's in Robert's rules, right? But we don't do that. So, I mean, we follow Robert's rules, but that's not our norm. So should we say we're going to follow Robert's rules to the T in our board norms, or should we just like, exactly?
It's an advisory suggestion to be used sporadically and wisely by the chair when needed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's say
Mhm.
And twice is more than enough for us to get a thumbs up or thumbs down on a motion on the table. So I think that's where this comes from and where the Robert's Rules of Order
Right.
spirit is. And in the past 4 or 5 years, we had to go through that maybe a couple of times where we needed to actually move the conversation deliberately and respectfully and mindfully of everybody during the meeting. And that's among thousands of conversations we had.
Yeah.
So we could take it out, but I would recommend as a recommendation language to leave it to the discretion of the chair if they want to use that.
I was thinking along the lines of all board members should have an opportunity to speak before a second, or before further comments, how it's written, and the discussion strives to be within the time allotted on the agenda. That way it's more open to, like, sometimes some people don't have anything to say, but somebody has 3 things to say, and we're still under the time limit, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of where I was kind of thinking with that. Does that make sense, Shauna, you got something about that, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with that, because I think when we've used it is when our discussion is just kind of spinning wheels.
Yeah.
And it's not moving us forward. And so I think then it gives everybody the opportunity, if they need to say something, but it doesn't just keep us talking and not moving forward. So I
Right.
think it's worth keeping in as something that can be used if needed.
Mhm. Go ahead, Trace. Thanks, Judah.
Then I wonder if we might consider rewording it to, as you had suggested, less rigidly, a number of times people can speak, and really instead focus on what is our actual practice, which is, as a board, we have a practice. Maybe we didn't officially say this is what we're going to do, but in practice, we defer to the chair if we need to move forward. And so perhaps that's what we want to build in there, is that the chair has the capacity to move to table or move to end the discussion if we've reached that point, rather than that count. We've had times where a person has not said anything for a bit. Someone has made 3 or 4 comments, and it was the 4th comment that inspired the board member who's not said anything yet to say something. And so we don't count this. We don't keep tick marks. Well, actually, some people have, but we don't generally keep tick marks. And so I think something that better captures the culture of the working consensus we have would be more accurately reflective of our approach.
Yeah. I mean, we do have a way to track that.
We do.
Right by this gavel.
The gavel that you use all the time, right?
Go ahead, Chris.
I have a couple questions. One, I wonder, can this be amended at any time, in the sense that we have a very strong board that works very well together and is very respectful and honors all of this, and yet we've all observed school board meetings in other areas that are quite shocking how disrespectful they are to each other and to the process. And so this is pretty light in my eyes from watching other school board meetings in other areas. And so I just want to make sure that if things change here in Corvallis, that we can amend this at any time to make it a little bit more strict with the rules and understandings of school board meetings.
That's what Ryan was talking about, like we review it every year, and I think it would be up to the board if we wanted to revisit it too. And I would say there's been contentious conversations in this board too. Not necessarily the one that's sitting here, but like in the Corvallis school board history. Yeah.
Good. And then my second question is, there's really, unless I'm not seeing it all or not reading it right, much about how we address public comment. And I apologize if there's more to it that I have not learned about yet, but I just wonder about how we respond to that. Like, for example, today, I really wanted to honor what the family said today and just make sure that we heard them and make those comments, and I didn't know. But there's nothing in here about comment. And then there's been times in the past where public comment has been, you know, teachers or whatever rallying for different things, and I get concerned sometimes about some of the comments that school board makes on their concerns. So is there something that we can put in there that would address that?
I don't know if it would go in here or not. We could, if we're gonna restructure it with the engagement piece, perhaps, like Shauna had, was that you that suggested? That's right. Thank you. I have, yeah, my recall today is not the best. But that makes sense. In the public comment period, we aren't supposed to engage in the cross conversation. It's more about asking clarifying questions, how it's structured. And I don't know if somebody has better history on how that structure works, because it was already like that when I got here. Yeah, is that part of some governing stuff?
Yeah, actually, BDDH and BDDHAR, I believe, speak to it. And there are some kind of laws and guidelines that could govern some aspects to it. So, for example, we can't entertain any discussion that relates to a staff member because there might be some laws around it or case law around it. If there is a situation where, so we want to be cognizant of our quasi-judicial capacity from one aspect, and also I think there are some best practices. OSBA captured them actually in a document that I think could be available there. So part of it is tradition, part of it is best practices, where it is the time for us to really listen, and while engaging might be very prudent and important, the space for it is probably, and we've seen it several times in public comments at the end of the meeting, we lean in on Ryan and say, we heard a lot about this topic, we would like to ask for a report, and if the consensus of the board that's important enough, then we might hear about that. Sometimes getting context afterwards will be valuable for the board, rather than engaging in a discussion that not have the full picture of a topic, no matter how urgent or critical it is. But also there might be a layer where it's not only purely board governance, there is some operational side to it as well. So I think that's what I could add to it. And I think I agree, maybe we need to inject some language here in the norms, but also we could lean on BDDH, if I'm not mistaken, that would be the policy for public comments. Actually, no, that's public participation in meetings. There is something about public comments. It's in the same document? Okay.
In the AR.
In the AR, okay.
And just real quick, Chris, the policies, I didn't know this when I first got on the board either, that AR is like the operational part of it. Yes, I got that down now, right? Yep. Now that I'm chair, I get that the best. That I have for a long time, but and then the policy is the part that we can be involved with. Yeah. Okay, we can probably take a couple more comments on this. Did you have stuff, Sean?
Yeah, I wanted to come back to what Chris, just I think to clarify or to ask a little bit more about what you were saying, Chris, about the way that the board responds or isn't able to respond to public comment, because I know that's a tension that I have felt. And so I'm curious if this is the same kind of thing that you maybe are referring to outside of being able to have a discussion. I think there are lots of reasons, and Sammy, you've done a great job of really pointing out what some of the guidelines are around not being able to engage in conversation in that moment, but carrying that on to other kinds of settings, but that feeling of knowing how much courage it takes for someone to come and to give public testimony, or to stand up here for the first time, or to bring their child with them, or sometimes students are the ones here speaking, and then to feel like it's a very sterile setting of being able to listen only, and maybe at best we can nod and say thank you, but not being able to even just in some way meaningfully say, you know, that was very courageous, thank you for being here. Something as simple as that. Yeah. And so I'm just curious about where the boundaries or guidelines are around how we can not engage in discussion or not cross some of the boundaries that are set that we're not able to cross, but in a trauma-informed and strengths-focused way, continue to build the positive relationships with community that encourage folks to come back.
I agree with that too, and also the part of we would need to be able to do that with everybody. And so that's where I think part of where that comes from is so it doesn't seem like we're biased towards only certain community members that come to talk to us. And so I recognize that part too. And it is very hard because sometimes when people provide testimony, you're like, oh, yeah, yeah, but yeah. Okay, was there any final,
Judah had something.
Judah, you had something? Okay.
I just really wanted to reiterate and echo what Chris had said, which Shauna did, so thank you both.
So then can I make a comment about that too?
No, just kidding, of course. We're done. Just kidding. I'm just joking, right?
First time.
I'm just joking.
No, that's okay, actually. One of the other things I just want the board to think about is that you are always in this dance between what's operational and what's policy. And I would encourage you, when you come across something that is policy related, to encourage the community members to reach out to us, because we only meet twice a month. And I worry that when there's a need that needs to be addressed immediately, that folks don't feel like they have to wait 2 weeks to come to the board for an operational decision, that we can enact early on. And so again, I would encourage you that as you're hearing from constituents, and that you can bring those concerns forward as well to us, because we really do want to do the best we can for our community, but we can only do as well as the information that we hold. And so I would say that, again, I'd encourage you as board members to bring those things forward. And we won't always be able to meet every need. I recognize that there's limits to our capacity, and at the same time, we're trying our hardest to do that. So I'd encourage you to utilize that as a method as well.
Thanks, Ryan. And with that, we can go on. Thank you, Shauna, for volunteering to help do the language part this time. We also have the board and superintendent working agreements to have for discussion. Does anybody have thoughts on this one? Questions, revisions, thoughts?
I would just suggest a similar read-through to make sure that there's some grammatical consistency in the way that we are setting up the sections. It seems a little like it's not as, well, actually, D, the role of the superintendent, has like the same kind of situation where we have like 3 or 4 of them that start with the superintendent is or the superintendent will, and then the others are just sort of statements. So just some consistency in that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Just in looking at the board role and relationship with the superintendent, Ryan, what you just mentioned in terms of if operational issues come to the board that are outside of the board's jurisdiction, that the board communicates that with you and with staff, that's not represented right now, I don't think, in this agreement. So what you just mentioned may be something for us to add there.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right, it kind of does. I had my page truncated right at the.
I mean, it does say respect, though. It doesn't say like we should refer. Yeah, so that would maybe that could just get added to that one.
Clarified, maybe.
And that's 9.
Mm-hmm. B9.
So I had a conversation with someone yesterday that in our discussion came up that it's always a challenge when we're talking with community members about the role of the board, and when we hear something and then when we respond and how that is heard by them as, is this a board member telling me this? Like we have authority, or is this a board member and I actually can't do anything? I'm just telling you. And so I'm wondering, and maybe this might actually be something that needs to get reflected in both of these documents, is some kind of agreement or understanding around like when people reach out to us, how will we respond with, that's not within the purview of the board, or this is what is within the purview of the board. As an example, somebody bringing up something and it's not our decision, it's an operational thing, so we want to communicate that to them. But we also want a message that as a board, we are here for them to share their concerns, share their ideas. And so how do we make the distinction between that's not something that I actually have the decision-making power over, and also I care about creating a space where, as a board member, not as a board member, as a school district, you as a constituent in our community feel comfortable to come and share an idea or bring up a suggestion or a concern that is not the same or not interpreted as I'm, as a board member, individually endorsing or affirming that what you're bringing up is a problem or that what you're suggesting is a good remedy, but merely wanting to say, these are the options. You can come and you can send an email, or you can come and share and make a public comment, or so some kind of like wording around guidance that would help us. When I was a new board member, that was really hard. I really didn't know how I was supposed to respond when people would stop me at the grocery store, and I'd be like, yeah, that's a great, I hear you, and we're at the grocery store, and I'm not, and also that's not my job, and I don't have that authority. And so some wording might be helpful. And I'm thinking about it in this document as it reflects on number 9, respecting the superintendent's responsibility. How do we make sure that in our public communications we're doing that? Also in the role of the board in terms of norms, how do we make sure that we are having a consistent standard around that?
And I think in policy, I can find language that we could use to highlight that. Sure.
Was that did Sammy just say the policy?
Yeah,
That's
Sammy
nice.
is like a
How do
walking
you know all
policy
these
index.
policy, like numbers off the top?
I actually text him
That's great.
sometimes to just be like, can you tell me where to find this? And I'm amazed. He'll respond like in real time immediately with, well, these are the ones you need to look at. And it's like, I don't know how you do that. It is your superpower as a board member.
It really is. I like policies and working with them. I just don't remember all the numbers of them. So I appreciate somebody does. Yeah, any other comments or revisions, questions? I think we did a lot of work on this one too. Yeah, so, yeah. And, okay.
So to summarize this one, I'll work on it and I'll bring it back.
Okay, thank you, Ryan, for doing that. And one thing I did appreciate on this is something I always keep an eye out for, and I think I forgot to mention that with the last one, is that on B1, it says seeking to make decisions in the best interest of all students in the community, because not all of all students in the district are minors, and so it's more inclusive of all the students when we don't call everybody children. We have students over the age of 18. And so I really appreciate that language to include them in our conversations too. I know the majority are minors and our kids and our children. And we do have some students who are not. But okay, let's move on to consolidated action. As a reminder, the items under this portion of the agenda are for action. Does anyone have a question about anything in consolidated action? Sammy?
I have a question, not necessarily for now, but just want to flag it because a Senate bill from 2021 was brought to my attention that will require our school districts of our size to have someone from the equity committee. So they asked for formation of a specific equity committee with specific parameters, and to have one of the members of that committee to be appointed to the budget committee, so we don't have to deal with it now. But one thing I want to raise, maybe, Ryan, if you can share how would that look like? And also, I had discussion with some counterparts across the states, and the question mark we're having, should we actually need that if there's an opportunity to revise the law? Because what we do here is you may contribute much more to the budget early on before the budget committee meeting. There's so much contribution there. So what is the most effective involvement of someone who's already putting lots of labor into the equity committee? So I just want to raise that to here. I suspect we're not going to need to do that this year or next year.
Sammy, just for clarification for the community, you're talking about item A, right?
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I was talking about budget committee vacancies, action requested, which is acting on the plan to appoint budget committee members.
Thank you.
And that's all.
I think we're okay for now. And also, as a community, even pre-bill, we've done work to engage community stakeholders. And so there's a couple of groups that are meeting currently, like our DEDI group and our Delta group, that I think will meet the spirit of that law. So I feel like we have a strong foundation. It's not something that's going to just be created from a new place. It's work that's been going on for quite some time. So I feel prepared to make those changes as we get closer to the implementation of the bill for school districts of less than 10,000 students.
Thanks, Sammy and Ryan. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I just want to, because we're talking about budget committee vacancies, I'm assuming we approve this in consolidated action. Any community members who are watching, I encourage you to consider applying to be on the budget committee. It's a great way to serve the district. It's a great way to understand some of the workings of the school district and how we use our finances to support our values and to support our students and our staff. So it's a couple months of work in the spring and a very valuable position. So please consider joining us on that committee.
Thanks, Sarah. Anybody else have anything from consolidated action? Okay. Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I move to approve the items in consolidated action.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Sammy. It's been moved by Sarah and seconded by Sammy to approve consolidated action. So I'll go ahead. Judah, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sarah? Aye. Chris?
Aye.
Shauna?
Aye.
Therese?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so that passed unanimously. Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
I do have one comment, just quickly related to that. It's okay. I just wanted to acknowledge in the budget committee vacancies, I wanted to acknowledge the individuals whose terms either ended or are not going to be returning. Joshua Clark, Nikki Mendoza, and Courtney Holgate. So just wanted to take a moment to say how much it's appreciated when we have community involvement and those individuals served, and we are grateful for their participation.
Thanks, Therese. Okay, we do not have any consolidated information anymore, and so we're at the board member comments. Does anybody have a comment? Go ahead, Sarah.
So I got a bunch of emails today discussing syllabuses and course revisions and assignments around AI and the use of AI, both using it as a tool for education and how to handle issues around academic honesty and integrity with AI. And we had a student come in and talk to us about this issue last year. And I just would encourage us at some point to consider what, as a district, we need to do to approach AI as both a learning tool and a potential problem in our, and whether that needs to become a revision of academic honesty policies, or I'm not sure what shape that takes, but I think preparing our kids to go, our students to go out in the world, understanding how to use that as a tool and where it can create problems would benefit them. So I think we need to think about that.
Thanks, Sarah. Judah?
Thank you. Something that I've been looking closely at and doing a lot of research in is how accessible our board meetings are. I'm a person living with disabilities. There are a number of people in our community living with disabilities, and in reviewing what is currently available, it appears to me that we could be taking a lot of action to make sure that these meetings are as accessible as possible. I have been floored and tremendously impressed at the thoughtfulness and the rigor for accessibility with students and in designing new buildings. And I'm hoping that in this upcoming year that we can apply that same thoughtfulness to our own meetings and be demonstrating that we have a commitment, while being due to the time and the location of our meetings, we can't be fully accessible, but that we can make these meetings absolutely as accessible to this community as possible. And I'm hoping that other board members might be willing to join with me for a discussion on this. I have been looking into some resources, and there are some really exciting technologies available that could really increase everyone's ability to access these meetings and participate.
Thanks, Judah. I'd like to chat about that too. Go ahead, Sammy.
I have a couple quick comments. The first one I want to build up on what Judah's comments in terms of accessibility. One factor I've heard recently from community members is the duration. And I had community members saying, well, how do you expect parents to come into a meeting of 2 hours or 3 hours? And I want to just sit with that comment and really share it in terms of, I'm not sure what we can do about it. We do lots of important business. The reports we hear are really crucial parts of our work. And we had this discussion in multiple dimensions. One of them, time is not everything. Sometimes it's about the quality of the conversation. But also we had a discussion around how long board meetings can be where students, representatives can have full engagement. And we know after 8 o'clock probably that's going to be too late for them. So I don't know what's the suggestion, but probably part of the inclusive discussion, deliberation around accessibility based on ability, but also based on capacity of folks. We might need to explore some solutions, maybe shorter meetings and longer meetings alternating, where folks can feel comfortable during business meetings. I'm not sure what's the solution, but I just wanted to report that. I've heard it a lot. The second comment I want to share, just want to elevate the points I reported on with OSBA's. The board member representing Glenn Benton Lincoln has resigned, and it's a vacant seat. Individual boards may nominate a board member of their own, and then you'll have election where each school board in the region will elect someone. Again, I want to acknowledge Sarah. You've been phenomenal in your leadership as LPC for the region, and Lahoy as a vice chair of the caucus. I would suggest if someone has the capacity from this board, it's a really important position to represent the region, Lynn Benton Lincoln. And I'm also having conversations with other folks across the region if there might be someone interested. I'm not aware of anyone, so please feel free to contribute, and I would be excited to work with you and alongside with you on the board.
Thanks, Sammy. Do you have something, Therese?
Yeah, a couple things. Sorry about that. On the subject, actually, I kind of just lost it, so I'm just going to skip that one. It was there, now it's gone. Oh, it was about the timing of the meeting. I remember now. I was thinking about in terms of accessibility, we have an agenda and we have these approximate times. And I'm thinking about if I'm a community member and I'm trying to participate in a section, like, for example, public comment, which can be a little bit spotty about exactly when it happens. It's a significant time commitment then, like you need to be here, because what if the superintendent's report is 3 minutes long and then public comment can happen at 6:41? I don't know, if that maybe has never happened, but earlier than, and so I do think there are some ways, process-oriented things that we could look at that might help make it more accessible for folks. We need bigger structural things, but also maybe even just some small things like potentially reorganizing to the order to allow for a little bit firmer time for when certain things are going to take place, so that things for people that don't need to be here for the entire meeting anyway. And I want to recognize the community is absolutely impacted by the length of our meeting, and so are our staff who have worked all day and are now in a meeting and then have to come back to our schools tomorrow morning. And so that is something that I just don't want that to get lost. I care about the community. Also know that they do get to leave at some point, and then these folks are here until we're done, and so it can make a really long day. So I don't know, that's just an observation about there. I wanted to comment on earlier today when we had public comment that required translation. I think that, one, I'm really grateful to be in a district where that needs to happen and we go, how do we figure that out? Let's make it happen. Instead of, oh, it's really not that important. I'm also aware that if I'm a person who's needing that service and it's not clear to me how to get it, that might deter me from participating. And so I think this continues to be a learning opportunity for us. Not for us to figure it out, because we did that, but for the folks that might need that service, not to have to rely on us to figure it out, because it's very clear and they can make that request, they know how to make that request, and they can choose for themselves if they want that support, as opposed to, right now going, oh, okay, we need to do this, we need to figure this out. I have all the confidence, and we've demonstrated that we will, but I wonder if there's a more proactive way for us to have something in place so that when a person wants to make a comment, it's not, we aren't figuring it out in the moment, but feel a little bit more prepared to receive those comments. And Spanish is an easier one for us, but we have people in our community that do not speak Spanish, and if they had shown up to make public comment tonight, I don't know if we would have been able to accommodate them. And so that is not lost on me that we're in a building that houses a dual language program, and that is the only language maybe that we're equipped to offer such immediate and responsive services. So that's something for us to think about.
Do we have, I haven't double checked, I don't remember seeing it on, is there any, how do they request translation services? Is it on the webpage right now?
So right now, we will have Spanish interpreters here at all of our business meetings, because that's where we have public comment available. But if it's a different language, yeah, we would need, and I don't know, I mean, I think we probably can make it clear on the webpage, but again, if they don't know that those services are available, they're not going to know to go there. And so that's a whole nother issue. And I'm not sure what that would look like.
I'm wondering if there's a way to just have a button embedded on there where it's like to request like translation services and also to request accommodations, because I mean, we don't use universal design here, right? For our meetings, or we would have sign interpreting going on and we'd have our stuff captioned all the time. And so there's stuff like that that I don't think it's captioned all the time. It does a horrible job with me. I'm just going to say it does not like the auto captioning does not understand my voice.
Right.
Do we have that going? Yeah? We have that going, okay, cool. But, because we can't see it on the screen, so I don't know, but like we don't have like sign language interpreters here in the building either. And so if it's something simple where we can put like a press here for that or press here request, that might be an easy, like systematic, not systematic, but like web page at least, but people would still need to know to go to the web page.
And
that's the part.
I mean, we have a lot available on our webpage that people don't, and I don't know how to better communicate that it is available. We have a lot that's not taken advantage of. So yeah, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, I think that's part of our ongoing communication and engagement conversation of where do people, that could be something we can start maybe looking into, like where do people find information Like are they hearing it from friends, how to provide public comment? Are they hearing it from family advocates, or are they asking board members that they know, like where are they finding, or is it on the webpage? That could be something we can maybe try to look into a little bit more.
Just want to throw out something else that would be an easy fix is for the images that are shown, for those to be available with screen reader descriptions. So for individuals who are sight impaired can still enjoy descriptions of all the wonderful images, because right now, the way that we're displaying them, they're completely inaccessible. And that's
the alt text?
Yeah, the alt text, and having a way for those images to be available and for there to be an alt text available, and that's already widely available throughout a lot of our district resources.
Okay. Yeah, I think we've done some structural changes to the meetings before I was chair, like when Sarah was and Sammy and everybody, to like move things around. I know like we've tried to take into account like staff time, or even decisions like let's do all the staff reports before we take a break, stuff like that. And so I think there's little things, but there's still long meetings, and it's a hard balance to keep of how do we keep them short, because we can't, because there's a lot of information. We have to follow public meeting laws too. And so we can't do some of this stuff through email or through just closed meeting reports and stuff like that. It has to be public meetings. And so I'm wondering too, like this is just me thinking out loud about for people to be able to look back on the videos, if this would take staff time though, so I recognize that, like where in the videos certain things are. I know when I've provided video links to community members in the past, I've like skipped ahead and said that discussion point is right here and stuff like that. And so I know other board members have done that too. So it's kind of, that way people can at least watch back. And I do appreciate that we do have the meetings accessible for later on. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing ideas out right now as we're chatting about this.
And it's possible we're sitting in a room where there are accessibility experts present that may have some ideas later that we can come back to this. I know.
It is a long meeting. Okay. When is there any other? Did you have something, Chris?
Very quickly, I just want to applaud our school district on the whole way we do school supplies. I was at Target last week and watching these families very stressed while they were purchasing their several $100s worth of school supplies, and just really want to applaud our district that we don't make that kind of requirement on our families, because it is a hardship. And I was just really proud walking through there thinking about our district, and just wanted to make that public comment.
That is a great example of using an equity lens, right? Yeah. Any others? Okay. I'm wondering if we can, tonight isn't the first time I've heard stuff about transportation from the community leading up to school, so I'm wondering if we can perhaps look at that policy in one of our leadership meetings before coming to the meeting with it. That'd be great. Okay.
So
Okay.
one thing I can say about transportation is that we are the closest to being fully staffed that we've been in the last 3 years. And we have people in training that will allow us to have all of our routes fully staffed for the first time since before COVID. So
That's great.
it is a significant improvement this year over the past couple of years. So while we know that there's work to do, that was really, the team was really excited that that was a possibility for the first time in a long time.
That's awesome to hear. Okay, I think we're good, right? Okay, let's go ahead and adjourn at 9:29 p.m. Thanks, y'all. Have a good night.